And it was not just Florida's west coast that experienced that record flooding. In Orlando and other central cities, cars and homes fully submerged. Authorities say parts of Orlando were hit with nearly 1.5 feet of rain, causing lakes to overflow and flood that area. Video shows people trying to escape to dry land by boat. Across Orange County, several nursing homes had to be evacuated, with many residents being taken to safety by boat. Rescue efforts are ongoing in those heavily flooded areas. Let's bring in meteorologist Michelle Grossman to talk about where this storm is headed now. Michelle, this is just extraordinary. You had this massive hurricane move into the west coast, go down to a tropical storm over Florida, and now reconstituting and becoming a hurricane again, making its way up the Atlantic.
Yeah, I know. And all those images are devastating. They're heartbreaking. And we saw a tropical storm for about 13 hours. Then it jumped into the Atlantic and it regained its strength to a Category 1 storm. That is what we're expecting at landfall. Later on today, the landfall is expected between Myrtle Beach and also Charleston. So really remains a very strong storm, a powerful storm. And we are looking at a tough day in portions of the Carolinas today, especially in South Carolina. So here are the latest stats. We're looking at 85-mile-per-hour winds. That is strong. We're looking at it moving at northeast at 9 miles per hour. It's going to pick up speed as we go throughout the hours here today. The location not far from Charleston, about 145 miles southeast of Charleston. And you can see on radar already seeing that really heavy rain. Most of the rain with this storm is on the northern edge. So we're seeing that already. Where you see those brighter colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows, that is where we're seeing the heavy rain falling. So portions of Virginia seeing that as well. North Carolina, South Carolina, and a bit of Georgia seeing that as well. As a result, we do have a flood watch that is in green for portions of Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Also looking at those flash flood warning, that means flash flood or flooding is happening at this moment. So where you see the red, that's where we're seeing the flooding happening. And you saw that on radar where we see those darker colors. 15 million impacted by these flood alerts today. And we are concerned for life-threatening flash flooding. We're concerned for life-threatening storm surge once again. It has been such a water story with Ian and will continue to be so. 13 million people impacted by tropical alerts today. Where you see the red, that is a hurricane warning. We are expecting hurricane conditions later on today in South Carolina. That includes Charleston, Myrtle Beach, Pawleys Island, all up and down the island. So here's that storm surge threat. It was such a devastating scene in Florida. We're seeing images upon images of what storm surge can do, the power and ferocity of water. So we're concerned about that today. The location of the landfall, somewhere between Myrtle Beach and Charleston, probably around Georgetown, South Carolina. The timing late afternoon into late evening. And we're going to see high tides early this morning around 11 o'clock in Myrtle Beach, also in Charleston, and then later on tonight. So those are the two times that we're going to watch because that's going to raise that sea rise. What storm surge is a wall of water from the ocean and goes onto dry land, and that is very powerful and it creates a lot of problems. Here's the impact of rainfall. Lots of rainfall across the area, stretching from the Carolinas into the mid-Atlantic, even to portions of the Northeast. We could see up to a foot of rain still with this storm. So we're going to be watching that very closely. We're also watching the threat for severe storms. Back to you.
You're talking about some heavily populated areas there, too, with Charleston, Myrtle Beach, Savannah. And by the way, some of the most beautiful places in the country. We hope they do well. Michelle, I'm curious, in your experience, how unusual is this or how extraordinary is it to see a storm like this start in one body of water in the Gulf of Mexico, go over land, become a tropical storm, and then come back as strong as it has in the Atlantic Ocean, an entirely different body of water?
You know, Will, we've seen so many rarities this season. We've seen storms go from the Atlantic to the Pacific, back to the Atlantic. And with this storm, you know, I think what stood out, it started out as, you know, a weak storm and then just rapidly intensified. We don't see that often. And that is a connection with climate change. So we're looking at the waters being warmer a little bit further north. So that's what we're seeing. It holds a lot of water. The atmosphere, when it is warming, we can hold a lot more water. That's why we're seeing this story being about the water. And that's how most people die when it comes to hurricanes. It's all about the sea rise and it's all about that fresh water falling. So that is the problem. And it's becoming more and more normal. And that's a problem, too.
And a problem also, we'll look ahead, Michelle, but whether or not insurance companies cover damage due to storm surge versus the storm doesn't seem fair. Meteorologist Michelle Grossman, thank you very much.